Hello once again, everyone, and welcome to a new series. So, recently, my Fiore class finally finished the Going Posta series of classes. That being, we're just going through all 12 of Fiore's longsword guards, out of armor, that is, and discussing what they do before jumping back into, we're actually starting that tonight, jumping back into the plays themselves. As an important thing to remember is that when it comes to the flower of battle, it is the idea of fighting from positions. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to come up and doggedly stand in a guard and force the person to do the exact right thing. You're going to move between these positions dependent upon what your opponent is doing and employ them tactically as best you can. Because every time you step up and take a position, or force an opponent to take a position, you are dictating the fight. And so as such, a big part of that is looking at specifically what Fiore tells you can do out of positions, because they're not all equal. Some kid will say this guard can do pretty much anything, but all of them have certain aspects that we'll link back to and work through. So helping me out today is Jake, one of my prime florists. So, in this case, the guard that we're going to be covering, and why don't you show it from the side view, the guard we're going to be covering is Porta di Ferro, the first of the 12. Now, Porta di Ferro is the iron gate. Your left foot is forward, your hips are square, my right foot is back, and my arms are just kind of resting naturally in front of me. You don't want the tip to be back behind you. You don't want it to be too far forward. It's pretty much just, if I had a third leg, that's where it would be. My arms are just kind of resting, my elbows are in, and I am upright. The really important thing about this guard is that you need to open this up, because you are going to be projecting a lot of energy down into the middle. And that's pretty much the main motion you're going to be doing right there, is from here, I don't lift up my arms then come in. I'm going to push on the pommel and pretty much move through Posta breve into Posta longa. So here's that again, boom. Right? My sword at a slight 45/30 will usually do the trick. So this guard is particularly good at a couple different things. The first of which being covering, and these can enter into pretty much anything you want, right? Close or narrow range. So he's up in Posta di Donna, he's going to cut at me. I just project my tip across, my left foot remaining forward, and now we have entered into the long-range game. And the reason I'm still in the long-range game is because my right foot is still back. So from here, it is not particularly difficult for me to do whatever fighting I'm going to do. I can extend a thrust, I can come around and cut his arms, I could also, cut at his hands, causing him to raise, so then I can step out. I can employ my right leg in a bunch of ways. I'm not stuck at close distance. I am still quite far away from him. And worst comes to worst, from here I can tornare, and now I've reinforced myself. And that is something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. The idea of if he cuts at me, and I make my cover, and I'm not feeling good about this, passing backward here does not actually weaken me at all, right? I keep my structure because I'm just putting my core into it again, while gaining distance. But that's your first response, is just putting yourself into any of the long-range plays, wherein from here, you just go out, and you're pretty much safe. The second response is, as I make that cover, I'm bringing my foot forward. This is not cover then step. This is moving into it at the same time. So he cuts at me, and I'm stepping up against him. And you guys can't see, but his eyeballs immediately went to the sword. That's good. Because from here, with my right leg being forward, what I'm looking to do is, number one, close this distance. Number two, get him focused on the absolute amount of pressure that I just suddenly put against him. And he's already directing his point and his hands off to the right. Which is good for me, because what I'm loading up is being able to bring that left foot forward for all of my grappling actions. Not all of them, but the majority of them that Fiore shows us are going to be moving to the outside of his body, so that I may then control his sword arm, cast him onto his back, do all sorts of mean things. But the biggest thing about making this work for you is that I'm not focused on him, and I'm not focused on his sword. I'm focused on the space between us. So slowly, as he starts his cut, I'm just putting myself into the middle with a passere forward, and I need to be solid, right? Now here, we ended up in a bit more of a cross-on-cross, so he may go ahead and fight me here, but that's okay. If we're both in the close-range game, it's not the end of the world. Plus, I can always move backward. I have a lot of fun options from here. But that's its whole deeper topic that we're not getting into today. So that's option number 2. You either stay out long, or you make the choice to go in. Now, the other 3 things that we're going to be doing, well, other 2 things, are going to be some specific plays. Those being the breaking of the point and the exchange of thrust. And for this, let's go ahead and switch sides. So, these 2 plays are specifically used against thrusts. how are you going to know when someone's going to thrust against you? Number one, wear armor, then everyone's going to stab at you. But number two, Fiore gives us more point forward guards. In fact, he gives us quite a variety of them, and people will use them a little bit more extensively. So that's a good thing for us. Most of the time, you're going to see a thrust launched out of either Finestra or Posta usually. But from here, what's going to happen is number one priority is that when he thrusts against me, right, he's going to be bringing his right leg forward to get his maximum extension into the longest posta longa. If I just make my cover from here, he may still get me, because I'm trying to move this point across my body. That's a risk that Fiore doesn't want to take. So what we'll always be doing when we use these two plays, regardless of posta, is as he thrusts, I will be moving offline by bringing my right leg forward and then following it with my left leg. So this would be not a tutta volta, this is more of a mezza volta. So I'm coming up and around to get this pressure onto his weapon. And one of them will be pushing down, and the other I'll be extending through. So, our first one will be the exchange of thrusts. And the way this is going to work is it's not dissimilar from the way you did your cover before. Just now, rather than covering out and just fighting from there, I'm going to focus on, I usually tend to zero in on about where, the opposite side of where his heart would be, really. I zero in on that little bit of him, and I keep my focus there. So then as he extends his thrust, I'm going to just put my point there and step out. Now, the most important thing about this is I need to get my sword in front of me in the tempo of me moving. If I try to go 1, 2, I might get stabbed. If I try to go 1, 2, right, not going to work. If I go 1, 2, I'm definitely going to die, right? So this is meant to be, as he extends slowly, right, out, then out. So I'm already kind of guiding his sword, and I use that as a reference for where I'm going to step next, and I should just jam the point into him. You keep your hands low for this. If you try to raise up your arms, it's usually going to miss, and don't try to aim the point. Just put your sword into the space between you. So he thrusts at me again, no problem, right? Nice and solid, he pretty much walks right onto it. Now, Fiore will also show this directed up at the eyes, or at the armpit, or at center mass, just kind of depends upon what they're wearing. So that's going to be the exchange of thrusts. We'll be showing it a lot. The second option is breaking the point, which is usually good if you don't believe that you can exchange points successfully, which honestly, sometimes you can. So for this, I'm going to use the exact same idea. As he comes in with the thrust, but I'm going to direct my point over his sword as I step to the side. Now, most people, when they see this, they're like, how the heck did you get there? This is essentially not really percussive. I'm just guiding his point, whereas before I guided it out to the side, now I'm guiding it downwards. He can't resist me by pure muscle, and if he does, he puts my sword into his face, right? So this is just me stepping out to the side and then putting a weight on top of his sword. So here's that again. No problem. Now from here, again, we have plenty of options. There is the boom, boom. There is the whole step on the sword thing. You could close in. At that point, it's your options, right? But this initial part is the most important thing to get used to. And this is also important when people are thrusting at you with spears, etc., because you really need to get out of the way. So here's that one more time, super slow motion so you can see my hands. Out and over. And I direct that point downward. I don't want to try and do this. Direct that point down. You open him up. He'll most likely do some sort of narrow panic response, and you have a bunch of wonderful things that you can do that me is mine. But we'll cover all those another time, or you can go through them yourself. But that is going to be Porta di Ferro, right? It's Fiore's first guard and does a lot of good things. Deals with the thrust in the two ways that Fiore deals with the thrust. It also puts us set up for pretty much all of his plays if you pass forward or if you stay in place, which is good. So next week, we're going to go ahead and be covering Posta di Donna, Posta di Donna Soprana, and so you'll be seeing a lot more of Jake here. But either way, thank you very much, Jake. And we shall be going over the other postas another time.